How to write a research paper. Research proposal equals. There is no single format for research proposals. This is because every research project is different. There are, however, several key components which must be included in every research proposal. The specific research problem will dictate what other sections are required. Key components are equals a description of the research problem, an argument as to why that problem is important, a review of literature relevant to the research problem, a description of the proposed research methodology, a description of how the research findings will be used and/or disseminated. Research paper equals describing a research problem equals before your proposal can make sense to a reader, he or she must understand clearly what the proposed research will be about. Therefore, you would do well to begin this section with a clear and simple formulation of your research question. Read the following examples. This research project explores the extent to which vigilantism is growing within different sectors of the South African population. In particular, the research focuses on the factors which promote and maintain vigilantism in our society. Many community projects in rural Mpumalanga rely on micro-enterprises, such as community gardens and spaza paper shops, to extend the income-generating potential of communities. The following is an investigation of the extent to which these micro-enterprises do actually influence the broader economic position of these communities. Flesh out this section with some or all of the following. Where does this research question come from? If it arises out of a debate in the literature, introduce that debate. Clarify or quantify any concepts which may not be clear. Have a look at a very simple example. Equals this research project explores the extent to which vigilantism is growing within different sectors of the South African. Ads by Google. In particular, the research focuses on the factors which promote and maintain vigilantism in our society. Recent reports in the media detailing the operation of extensive and organized vigilante groups have created public interest and concern, and there are important implications for policing policy. A vigilante is defined as being a volunteer committee of citizens for the oversight and protection of any interest, especially one organized to suppress and punish crime summarily, as when the process of law appears inadequate. Smith, 2001. Why the research is important. This section, often referred to as the rationale, is crucial because it is one place in which the researcher tries to convince his supervisor, external examiner that the research is worth doing. You can do this by describing how the results may be used. Think about how your research equals may resolve theoretical questions in your area, may develop better theoretical models in your area, may influence public policy, may change the way people do their jobs in a particular field, or may change the way people live. Are there other contributions your research will make? If so, describe them in detail. Look at the following example. In the economic example of ads by Google, micro-enterprises in rural communities, the researcher might argue that the research will 1. Provide an understanding of the economic impact of micro-enterprises. 2. Support the government's plans for startup loans to micro. 3. Demonstrate the usefulness of micro-enterprises as part of rural development, thereby contributing to the work of government and non-government rural development organizations. 4. Detail regarding each of these 3 points should be added to produce a convincing argument as to the usefulness of the research. Literature review equals. The literature review presents one of the greatest challenges of the ads by Google. The literature review presents one of the greatest challenges of the research proposal to experienced and inexperienced researchers alike. The literature review provides a conceptual framework for the reader so that the research question and methodology can be better understood. demonstrates to the expert reader that the researcher is aware of the breadth and diversity of literature that relates to the research question. It is important that you are able to provide an integrated overview of your field of study. This means that you show awareness of the most important and relevant theories, models, studies, and methodology. Examples. The research topic is the history of mental illness in Natal in the period up to 1945. Unsuccessful literature review equals Foucault's works looked at mental illness, asylums, and the archaeology of knowledge. Roy Potter's and Edward Shorter's histories of psychiatry and psychology show that definitions of mental illness have differed across time and place. Ernst and Swartz record that under colonialism, science and medicine contributed to racial, class, and sexual discrimination. Feminist writers Chesler and Showalter, who have written on psychiatry, will be important for this study. Post-structuralist and postmodernist approaches to the construction and representation of identities will be used. Post-colonialism's concern with the subaltern and the suppression of subaltern voices will be significant. Successful literature review equals this study will draw on diverse approaches to the history of psychiatry and to the origins of segregation in Southern Africa. Histories of psychiatry and psychology have shown that, although having a probable partial biochemical basis, the criteria for the definition of mental illness have differed across time and place. The history of science and medicine in both Europe and in the colonial order provide a means for exploring the role of biomedicine, including psychiatry, in post-structuralist and postmodernist approaches to the construction and representation of identities, and to the articulation of power, will provide a means of deconstructing the texts and discourses which are an important part of this study. In particular, the works of Michel Foucault on mental illness, asylums, and the archaeology of knowledge will be considered. I recognize, however, that the application of Foucault's ideas in the African context is problematic. Post-colonialism's concern with the subaltern and the suppression of subaltern voices will be reflected in attempts to hear the voices of the institutionalized.